Hello and welcome back to the Facts of Facts, the only Facts of Life podcast that is hoping to be able to audition for Oedipus Rex the musical once this pandemic's over.
Mm-hmm. I have a lot to say about that. I
feel like they dropped that one real quick, but we are here to talk about what the hell's the name of this episode?
A Royal Pain.
A Royal Pain. I usually write it in my notes, but I didn't this time. Royal Pain, that is episode 12 of season 4. And I feel like it's kind of a turning point for the show.
No.
Well, I'll tell you why. I feel like these past 2 episodes were awful. And I feel like everybody knew that they were awful, and they were like, we can't do this anymore. Can somebody brainstorm something so that by the end of this season, we're not in this fucking cafeteria anymore? Because they never are. So I feel like they do come up with a solve because of how dreadful this mid-season slog is.
Yeah, but you can say that because you've seen the rest of this season and the rest of this show. So you can be like, yeah, this is the turning point. At this point, it feels like we're going further and further into this sewage treatment plant. It gets worse and worse. I couldn't believe. I actually, when I was reflecting on this episode, I thought, the level of incompetence and laziness that this show exhibits is stunning. Especially with this one. This one was just purposeless, and it was hardly researched. It was as though Jerry Mayer just decided to just make shit up about everything. It was as though he was like holding up an apple and he was like, actually, you know what this is? This is an orange. He did not even a modicum of research into anything.
Yes, that is right. The 5 scariest words in the Facts of Life verse. It's a Jerry Mayer episode. I warned Britt in advance, but you guys had to deal with this. I mean, like, we had that backdoor pilot again. Like, we had a lot of crappy stuff. Let me just mute my phone. There we go. But yeah, this is not them working at their best. And I really do. I blame Jerry Mayer because it always seems to come back to like, it's the usual suspects, the Stuart Wolperts and the Deirdre Fays and the I feel like there's a younger crowd of writers in the writers' room struggling to get their voices heard. Every once in a while they do. And I feel like I feel like the old people are being shuffled out, and I think it's because of garbage episodes like this that made that be the case.
Yeah. So the last one they tried to, as I when we first started this podcast, I said, basically, I asked, like, is the sort of premise of the show is basically that the girls in Mrs. Garrett exist in this ecocosm, right? Where everyone plays a role and everything is sort of, it's delicate. And so when an outsider comes in and disrupts it, then everyone needs to figure out their relationship with this new person, right? So last week it was the 1,000-year-old man that Mrs. Garrett was planning on marrying for no reason. Who then everyone was like, we got to get rid of this guy. Get this old man out of here. This week, it's some weird, like, 12-year-old princess who did she suck off to get on this show? Because she's the worst actor I have ever seen. Like, does nothing.
She is a queen. I'll get into her.
They didn't give her a lot of stuff to do, aside from eat a sandwich very aggressively in one scene. But, like, she is almost affect free. It was like, I could have I could have read the script and felt more for the character than what she brought to this.
Yes, she has a history of her IMDb, which we'll get into very shortly. Honestly, has multiple after school specials spanning a decade. She was trapped in the after school special universe, and that not just like ABC's. She also did CBS's. I think they were called like lunch break specials or something like that. Um, yeah, not the mark of a all-star. But let's get into this.
Let me just pause you for 1 second. So I did listen to a podcast
Congratulations.
about after school specials, and how the guy that created them, I think for ABC, was this guy who was very like, he was a producer and like 90% well-meaning, 10% like, this is an opportunity to sell more ad space. But he identified that between the time when kids get home from school and when their parents get home for dinner and they eat at 6 o'clock or whatever, there's this bank of time in the afternoon for kids that you can show them stuff that they would be interested in. So
yes, I watched Facts of Life during that time.
Yeah. In any case, but he did a lot of like unusual, for the time at least, outreach to young kids to be like, what do you want to see like portrayed? And it was like, I want to see a very special episode about, making sure that my friend who's differently abled feels comfortable at school, or reefer madness or whatever, So I do think that like, for a window of time, even though after school special has now become kind of like an insult, I do think for a moment there, it was kind of like a very sexy place of things to make. And a lot of like famous actors went through after school specials.
There was nothing sexy about them at the time, at least for me as a television viewer. It was like having to watch school.
No, I don't mean the shows were sexy. I meant that it was a sexy programming block. It was like, oh shit, we have kids that we can advertise to. We can sell them cereal from 3:30 to 4:30 and show them something that was semi-educational. Yeah, that was sexy.
Sure,
That's
maybe
sexy
for
programming, not the shows themselves.
The show,
Jesus.
no, I don't mean literally sexy, but I mean like from my experience, like an after school special was like you dreaded that. Like, oh god, is that on? Change the channel. Okay. Anyway, so we are, as Britt mentioned, introducing a new character today. I hope you liked Alexandria because she's coming back.
One more time.
No, quite a few.
Oh, fuck. Really?
Well, okay. So she comes back in another episode, and then she comes back for the 2-part season finale.
Okay.
And that's it. So if you want to think about it, you have 3 more half-hour blocks with Alexandria, but we are going to cover Graduation, which is the season finale, as a single episode of our podcast. Yes. We actually have 2 2-parters left in this season, as well as we open next season with a 2-parter. So we're going to be in 2-parter central the next couple of months.
Oh, God, it's so many parts.
Yeah, it's a lot of parts,
and not even private parts.
They're so not private parts, but only the first one is bad.
This one?
No, the first 2-parter. I believe that I want to say Blair's sister comes to town and is like, I'm being a nun, and everybody's like, that's crazy. And then Joe's like, I like what you do, and I want to be a nun too. And that took 2 episodes to resolve. But beyond that, the other one's Graduation, which is a 2 thumbs up, and then the season premiere, which is another 2 thumbs up. You're going to get 2 back-to-back 2-parters.
Oh, God, all I hear when you say that is it's going to take me at least 48 hours straight to watch, 45 minutes of content.
I honestly, I'm so excited to get to those 2 episodes and a couple of ones before it too, because the show really takes shape by the end of the season. They figure it out.
Okay. It's taken them 4 years to figure this out. At this point, At this point, shit gets canceled in like 2 episodes.
That is correct. I don't know if you ever. I think about it all the time. Emily's Reasons Why Not. That was what's that girl? The daughter of that other girl, Goldie Hawn's kid. What's her name?
Kate Hudson.
No, it's not her. I'm gonna Google this. There was a TV show called Emily's Reasons Why Not on NBC, and it got like a big time slot premiere like after football or something, and it was horrible. It was like legitimately a terrible show. I remember she had like a work nemesis. Emily did, named Glitter Cho. It was just like a stylish Asian bitchy girl. Here we go. I'm spelling things wrong because it's the pressure of the podcast.
Oh yes, this very high pressure pod.
Yeah, it's like that means that I'm going to have to edit this. I'm not going to edit this. Heather Graham, that's who I was thinking of.
Yes.
I get Heather Graham and Kate Hudson confused all the time. This was a show that aired one episode. They like canceled it in the middle of airing it. They were like, why? Why did we do this? Never mind.
Can we take it off air right now? Can we just have like just flash like we're having technical difficulties? We got to get it off air.
Yeah, it was an Emily Kapnick show, and she's great. But she just developed it. It was created by somebody named Carrie Gersich, I think. My eyesight's not what it used to be. James Patrick Stewart was in it too. It was really bad, like so famously bad. And so no show's ever been canceled faster than Emily's Reasons Why Not. But so yes, things do get canceled a lot faster, and it does take, this show. I've enjoyed many episodes, and I enjoy the characters. But if I were to do a here are the 10 episodes of Facts of Life that you must watch, I would probably only include one episode that we've seen so far, and basically,
and I know which one
posterity.
It is.
Which one?
I know which one it is.
What?
It's the one where they get into a fight in their bedroom and they destroy it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would include that one out of posterity. And I don't think that these episodes are bad like you do. I don't love them, but the good ones are all coming up. Like if I were to make a mixtape, they're all coming up. I would put one from the season as well, for sure. And it's coming up.
Great.
All the way at the end of the season. Anyway, let's get back into this. Yeah. So yes, it's an Azad Colada cocktail. Joint. Yeah. I was trying to do a pina colada pun, but I didn't have one.
So we do dunk on Azad a lot for basically never going anywhere aside from the cafeteria.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like Azad got a note the week before this shot, and they were like, okay, you don't have to do much, and a lot of it can stay in the kitchen, but just bounce or in the cafeteria. Bounce around from the kitchen to the cafeteria, up to the girls' room, back down, back up, back down, then back to the cafeteria, and then that's fine. They moved from scene to scene, almost purposeless. Like it had no purpose.
That is, this entire episode had no purpose.
Yeah.
Honestly, I was watching the episode, and halfway through, I was like, is this girl gonna kill herself? Or try to kill herself? Like the girl that Blair ran against for school president? Because it feels like it's going there, and then it goes nowhere.
Yeah. I thought like last week's, I was like, oh my God, is she a grifter?
Yeah.
And honestly, that would have been so much more exciting.
It would have.
A teenage girl grifter who comes in, goes to boarding schools for 2 weeks, then moves on with her boyfriend via the bus who loves to eat subs.
Big face boyfriend. Gotta love him. All right, so this episode starts with Natalie saying the words Oedipus Rex, and I am hopeful. I'm like, what's this? I don't remember this. And I don't remember because they did nothing with it. But apparently, Tootie either has turned it into a musical or plans to turn it into a musical. It's hard to say. Who wrote the Oedipus Rex music? Where did this come from?
So Sophocles wrote this Greek tragedy,
Yes.
obviously, which is about, as Natalie just basically just lays out the plot. This is about a man who kills his dad, marries his mom, fucks her, and then pokes out his own eyes.
Yes.
I feel like that's a very universal thing that everyone can understand, that message and that story. But again, Oedipus Rex forms, I would say, some of the basis for almost all of Western literature. Let's say that there's something within Oedipus Rex in most things. Parental jealousy, not wanting to leave your mom behind. Basically, any sort of
wanting your mom's behind.
Or making a fated mistake, right? Which is what Oedipus does. In any case, so the opera of Oedipus Rex was written by Igor Stravinsky, who is one of the most, if not the most famous composers of the 20th century. He was born in Russia. He had an extremely what's the word? Revolutionary way of writing classical music. And he wrote he wrote the opera, and it premiered in Paris in 1927. And then it premiered in the United States in 1928. And so he is regarded as one of the most important and influential composers of the 20th century.
Did he write I Want a Girl Like the Girl Who Married Dear Old Dad?
That's one of his classics. That's
okay,
one of his classics. Yeah. So, but he was born in Russia, I think obviously I think in late 1800s. But he died a U.S. citizen. You might know him most famously for having written things like Firebird and The Rite of Spring. The Rite of Spring, which was used in the Disney cartoon Fantasia.
That's the sound when people go like this.
Yes, that exactly. I'm glad you did that, because most people can see on a podcast.
I stretched and yawned like I was waking up.
Okay. In any case, he was very famous. Like he had an affair with Coco Chanel. He lived in France. He had two very famous affairs. He moved to the United States during the Second World War. He was an emigre. He lived in Boston. He lived in New York. He moved to Los Angeles. He lived in Hollywood and Beverly Hills, and was very taken with Los Angeles and Hollywood and the entertainment culture. So it's not like no one knew who this guy was. He was so important that he met with JFK. And then once JFK was shot, he wrote a very moving piece of music to be played maybe during, I can't remember if it was actually during JFK's funeral, but it was for that purpose. Everyone knows who this man is. So the fact that Jerry Mayer...
It was his candle in the wind.
Yes. But the fact that Jerry Mayer was so fucking lazy that he went with Oedipus Rex, an opera written by one of the most famous composers, to be this insane idea to put Oedipus Rex to music. That's funny if a 12-year-old little black girl is doing it, but it already exists. Literally use anything else. Use anything else.
Well, I mean, I think they're making it
where it doesn't exist.
Yeah, I understand. I hear what you're saying. I do feel like they were implying that this was a jukebox musical, though. So there was no, they were, because I Want a Girl Like the Girl Who Married Dear Old Dad. They were taking terrible pop songs and putting it into what I imagined was a reworked version of Oedipus Rex, hastily rewritten by Tootie and Natalie in between episodes. And I would love to see that production.
So same here, but I think that it's like the jokes it was just that Jerry Mayer was being a creepy old dude being like, I want these little girls to make jokes about fucking your own mom.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
Well, you're coming in hot today. I'm still on my first paragraph. Apparently Tootie wants to turn into a musical where Tootie comes in and Nat just berates her for this fucked up idea of doing this as a musical, and apparently nobody is buying tickets. And then after all of this, then Natalie decides it's time to explain the concept of Oedipus Rex so that the audience understands what the fuck they're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like,
because
maybe this could have been...
You wouldn't go with something that didn't need to be explained in such a manner that also doesn't already exist. The laziness and incompetence is staggering.
Yes. And also, it just was so unfunnily done.
Yeah. And then the best thing, so Natalie's freaking out because she's like, well, it's so disgusting and depraved. I can't come up with a slogan to sell this. I can. You want to watch a boy? You want to watch a kid fuck his mom? This is the place to come.
I wrote, sing like a motherfucker. Oedipus Rex, the musical, starring Tootie Ramsey.
Perfect. And I hope she plays Oedipus.
Yeah, that's what I assumed. Because
so here's the thing. Tootie has the range. She could play Oedipus as well as Jocasta, the mom that she then fucks.
That, for Tootie to do a one-woman performance of Oedipus Rex, also it being a musical, would probably be the achievement of peak skill live theater. People would still be talking about that.
At this point, if she pulled that off, she should just go direct. Don't get out of Eastland. Go directly to Yale Drama.
Joe says, don't even worry about selling tickets. She's going to threaten people to come. I'm not really sure. She's like, I'll get them to buy tickets. It was the exact construction of the old I got it open bit from the Natalie's Diary episode. Just ominous and weird.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like she's like, I'm worried about ticket sales. And she's like, don't worry about it. I got it covered. And it's like, who are you talking? What are you talking about?
She's got a hot tip on a princess who's going to buy a couple rows.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So just to recap, Tootie is forcing the drama club to do an original musical version of Oedipus Rex that is a jukebox type musical without irony or humor. She does say that it's not supposed to be funny. And Blair hasn't even had a line yet.
Yeah, because Blair's been busy drawing.
Yes, she's in charge of costumes, and she's already designed the outfit Eddie will be wearing when he performs his big number, I Want a Girl Like the Girl Who Married Dear Old Dad. What the fuck is going on with this episode?
They could have cut all this shit out because it's never mentioned again.
Yeah, and also it seems like a really big undertaking. I mean, like the princess buys rows of tickets, but I think we could have come up with something better anyway.
It could have been. We didn't. This is the sort of thing where, like, honestly, I just wrote down. Once Blair delivers her one line, right? I wrote down, I hate this show. It is fundamentally stupid and anti-intellectual. Because Jerry Mayer went out of his way to utilize the world's most famous play for a gross, dumb joke that goes nowhere. Just so that everyone in the audience can think about having sex with their mom.
Yes. It's also, I really do, I must stress, it seems like these girls are doing this play themselves.
Yeah.
For themselves, by themselves. It seems like it's been rewritten and constructed to their specificity, and it just feels like quite an undertaking.
It does. And like, how long has Blair been designing these costumes?
I don't know. It's hard to say anymore. Mrs. Garrett comes in with two
Yeah,
giant suitcases and news of a new student.
indeed.
Yes, Nat cracks wise that the corpse of the new student must be in one of the suitcases. If only.
Yeah.
Alexandria comes in, swanning in, and introduces herself with a very chirpy ciao.
Yeah. So, and then Joe's just like, ciao. Oh, God. Just what I need, a black clone. So, before you get started on telling me who this actress is, I want to discuss her outfit.
By all means. Her princess attire.
Her princess attire. Her princess travel attire, I suppose. I
Okay.
have I have never seen more brown and more types of textures of brown on one single human being in my life. She had a brown hat that made her look like she had it made her head look like a penis. She had a brown scarf, a fuzzy brown jacket, a sort of brown and pink sweater, brown pants, and all of her luggage is brown.
And textured as well as her sweater.
Just who didn't she fuck in the costume department? Why did this person put her in all this brown?
It's a lot of brown. I agree. I think like it took me a couple of minutes into the scene to be like, what the fuck is going on? But yes,
So much brown.
that's what a princess wears.
Yeah.
So, all right, let's talk about Brown Alexandria. She's played by Heather McAdam, who is probably best known for being a non-sister on the Swoozie Kurtz series Sisters. And also, Britt discovered that Swoozie Kurtz autocorrects in her phone to deposit.
Yes, because we were texting to one another about a new show that Susie Kurtz is on, playing a
Call
mom.
Me Cat.
Call Me
Britt's
Cat.
favorite show of the year.
It's my favorite show of the year. Susie Kurtz. At this point I can't tell how old she is because, to be honest, to be perfectly frank, she looks good, but
Her head
she's
keeps growing.
she sort of looked like that since before Sisters. And
But her
in my
head
mind,
has been growing the whole time.
the whole time. The whole time. Anyway, we were texting about it, and I was like, "Oh my God, Susie Kurtz is on this," and I kept texting you, being like, "Deposit Kurtz, deposit Kurtz, Swoozie Kurtz." Anyway, so yeah,
Phones do not want to say Swoozie. They're like,
no one wants to say Swoozie.
Swoozie was from a time before texting, and I think the phones want to keep it that way. And also, she looks like the lady alien from Mars Attacks.
Yeah, the enormous head.
I've never seen a head bigger on a human being. Yeah. Anyway, so besides Sisters, which is definitely she was on like 90 episodes. It was kind of her biggest recurring role. According to IMDb,
Sisters. Can I pause you just for 1 second? That had Celia Ward. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I felt like that show was on for like 40 years.
It was like 8.
It was on for a really long time.
Yeah,
like it
not
had
as
that,
long as
like,
Facts of Life, but long.
No, but they were all like hour-long serious episodes. It was like an evening soap, right? So it kind of had that Grey's Anatomy longevity where you were like, God, this is still on? Jesus Christ, haven't they killed this person? Didn't she die? It had that weird quality where it was like, oh my God, you would turn it on, you'd be like, this is still on and she's still on it? So, good on this woman, Alexandria, what's her name?
Heather McAdam.
Okay.
According to IMDb, Heather McAdam bought her first house at the age of 18 in a small town in the Loire Valley, and her nickname is Smokey Joe.
Wait, say that again. Which valley?
It's spelled Loire.
The Loire Valley in France.
There you go.
So she bought her first house when she was 18 years old in the Loire Valley.
Yes.
And she's an American.
Yes.
And she bought this house with presumably with the Facts of Life money and the after school special money.
I'm gonna get into her whole list of things,
Okay.
but honestly, I will say more impressive to me is that her nickname is Smokey Joe.
Yes.
Anyway, she got her start recurring on the TV series Salvage One, which starred Andy Griffith and lasted 19 episodes. In this show, Andy Griffith owned a salvage operation where he and his partners reclaimed trash and junk and sold it as scrap. And Griffith's character also had a homemade spaceship, which he would use to reclaim junk satellites.
I hate this.
I wrote, what the fuck does that mean?
You can't just go up into space and reclaim a satellite. If anything, the satellite has to fall into your backyard and then you can reclaim it for scrap.
I assumed that the homemade spaceship lured the satellites. Like
it's a spaceship. It's not like it's like a missile rock, like a ground.
True, but it's also homemade, so I imagined it was not very good at being what it was supposed to be. But I haven't seen the show. I will say I'm kind of curious. Anyway, she also did a Fantasy Island, 7 episodes of a show called Walking Tall, and then the TV movie Little Darlings, and then a Saint Elsewhere, and then she started to recur here. And then she took a break for 3 years, and that's when she bought her house. She was like, I got enough money from all that, all my Salvage One money, buy a little house in the what valley?
Loire.
Loire?
Loire.
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 Loire Valley.
Yeah.
And then, she of course has 4 episodes total here. 2 of those are the 2-part finale, and then she takes that 3-year break, and then after she gets tired of the Loire Valley, she comes back to Hollywood and does a Rags to Riches.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, she does a bunch of after-school specials. She does Alien Nation, Murder, She Wrote, Quantum Leap, Doogie Howser, 90210, Perry Mason, Matlock, and she closes her career with a Touched by an Angel.
Ooh.
Yes.
When I was a
career to heaven.
When I was a kid, I was probably 7 or 8, and I visited the set of Alien Nation.
Oh, those heads freaked me out as a kid.
It was very freaky to see that shit like live, like in person.
How did you get that pass?
My parents were friends with, I think, the producing parents. With the aliens, yes. My parents are friends with aliens. I'm part alien myself. No, they were. I am the Borg from Star Trek. But no, my parents were friends with a couple people that produced it. So, and we were in LA from New York for visiting, and they were like, "Oh, do you want to come?" And I feel like the set was in like Burbank, and it was like, one of those like Burbank days where it was like 110 degrees, and it's like an unmarked white studio, maybe like Warner Brothers or whatever, and you're sort of like as a kid, you're like, this seems unusual. We're going into this unmarked building, and it's 1,000 degrees outside, and then you go inside, and it's like a very busy, buzzing set, and there are all these weird purple-headed aliens walking around and like sitting and like, reading their new pages and their director's chairs. And it's like, what is this? This seems fun. It was like I got, I peeled back the curtain to The Wizard of Oz.
Yeah, no, that sounds like a great time. I would have loved a moment like that.
Yeah.
Anyway, so Blair is certain that she has seen Alexandria before, but more on that later, because that also goes fucking nowhere.
Yeah,
it goes somewhere, but they do nothing with it.
Well, so that's what I was like, oh no, is this just going to be like 20 minutes of this little girl negging Blair for the rest of it being like, no, I don't know you. Being like Mariah Carey, like, no, I don't know.
It was mostly Blair negging her.
I've never seen you before. Yeah, and Blair being like, actually, you're not a real princess, and it's like, oh, God, this is what's happening here.
Yes, Mrs. Garrett tells Alexandria that this is the cafeteria where the girls eat, gossip, become food critics, and instantly become trapped in some kind of weird 3-year purgatory where every time they try to escape it, they cannot.
I know. And then Natalie says, well, the meals aren't half bad for prison food.
Fuck you, Natalie. And Mrs. Garrett
Fuck.
reacts like she's goosed. She's like, oh,
Exactly.
ooh.
Yeah, it did. Ooh. But honestly, you know what, Natalie? It's not as though you're rejecting any of the meals that you're getting in this cafeteria.
Yeah. Oh, do you not like your bedroom cakes that you eat in your room? Anyway, Natalie offers Alexandria to stay in their room until she's assigned a dorm, even though there are 3 other girls that share that room with her, and they have not weighed in on whether or not they would like to put a 5th girl in a single bedroom
in this
above
room
a kitchen.
And they have to, and she has to sleep on the floor.
That was also a surprise. Like, is there not one bed in this entire campus that this girl could sleep in?
She's royalty.
I once went to a music festival in Belgium with a buddy of mine, and we had no place to stay. I thought he had booked our residence. He thought I had. And so we ended up lying to the staff and saying that we were members of a band from the 80s.
Yes.
And that we had passes. And they caught us. And yet they still let us sleep with their staff. And they were overbooked in terms of staff, but they still found 2 beds to put us in. And this is a campus where people are paying to go there. And this girl is a princess, and they have not figured out where this girl could sleep for one night.
No.
Unreal. And Blair cannot get over the fact that she recognizes her, and finally she gets it. She figures it out. So this thing that Blair's been doing for 2 seconds goes nowhere because it didn't have a chance to develop into anything. She's like, "Are you sure I don't know you?" She's like, "Well, I don't know you." He's like, "I figured it out. I saw a picture of you in a magazine pretending to play tennis, Town and Country magazine."
Yeah.
Like, okay.
Well, so I will say this about that, is that at least it establishes the fact that she isn't a grifter. Because if she manages to get herself photographed in Town and Country playing tennis with, her famous tennis coach, Bjorn Borg.
The only tennis
practicing
person
her backhand with Bjorn. Practicing her backhand with Bjorn.
Mm-hmm.
Then it's like, oh, actually, she is a princess. Okay, well, now we know what we're working with here. But
yes. We live in a world where all blondes are famous jet-setting teenagers.
Sorry, you broke up a little bit.
Oh, I said we live in a world on The Facts of Life where all blondes are famous jet-setting teenagers. No? Can you hear me?
No. You're frozen. Am I frozen?
Nope, you're not frozen. Hang on. See what I can do.
Now you just sort of look like Armie Hammer's Instagram.
Well, that's not good.
You momentarily looked a little crazy. But certainly not like you're on DMT, like he says he was.
Can you see me now? Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Let's start again with this thought.
Yeah.
So it seems like we live in a world where all blonde girls are famous jet-setting teenagers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like we only know 2. We don't know any other blonde girls, and they're all just famous rich teen. If you're blonde, you're bound to be worth millions on this show.
Right. But also, the other weird thing about this is that she's, so Blair determines that she was playing tennis with Bjorn Borg, in Town and Country. She was photographed doing that. And then Princess Alexandria is just like, whatever. Yeah. No, of course, Bjorn. Me and Bjorn, we go way back. And
well, that's when Tootie goes, Bjorn Borg. And then Natalie goes, there are no other Bjorns.
There are no other Bjorns. And I just wrote down, that is patently untrue. There are so many other Bjorns. I found a whole list of famous Bjorns. Number one of the guys, Bjorn Ulvaeus, who was in ABBA, which was very famous at this time. So do your goddamn research, Jerry Mayer. If you're gonna use a famous tennis pro, do a different one. We've already had a Bjorn joke on this.
I thought this was the same exact Bjorn joke. Am I mistaken? I thought that the other joke was Bjorn Borg, and it's like, what other Bjorns do you know, Tootie? Like, I really thought this was the same exact thing.
Maybe, but still, there are a lot of other Bjorns. And also, number one, the other one, aside from the guy that's in ABBA, Baby Bjorn, which was started in 1961.
All right, well, you got us. Anyway, so Blair announces that Alexandria is the daughter of Prince Federico of Italy. And once the Toots gets excited about this, Blair starts shitting on it. There's no king of Italy anymore. Should we really be getting this hyped up over excised royalty? I mean, you guys, you're humiliating yourselves.
Well, everyone is humiliated. Everyone is showing their whole ass in this. So first of all, Blair is shitting on something by being like, you're not a real princess. You can say that you're a princess, but you're not actually, as though Blair is, even though she's fucking nouveau riche. No, Blair, whatever. But Jerry Mayer, I'm going to go back to Jerry Mayer, also showing his whole ass. There's no king of Italy. There was no one king of Italy ever. Ever. In any moment. Ever.
They didn't have Google then.
What?
I said they didn't have Google then. How was Jerry Mayer supposed to know these things?
But, I just feel like a modicum of research into, because to be perfectly frank, I thought what they were doing was they were making a reference to Monaco and Grace Kelly and Princess Rainieri. But they just went with Italy for some random reason, which is, again, factually incorrect. They abolished any kind of monarchy or any kind of anything aside from a prime minister in the 50s. So Jerry Mayer, read a book.
Fair
enough. An encyclopedia. Or, you know what? Pull up Princess Diaries. Make up a country. She could be the Princess of Genovia. She could be the Princess of Jerry Mayer land. Who gives a shit? But it's just this odd, constant barrage of factual inaccuracies that is just lazy and stupid for nothing. Nothing happens in this episode, and they don't even make her into a sort of fun adversary for Blair.
No, she sucks.
She sucks all around. The only thing that they give this little girl to do is act like a nincompoop, eat a sandwich, be a little bit mean to Blair, and then be a sad little rich girl, which is Blair's plot line. Give her something else.
They won't. Wait till you see how they use her for the next couple episodes. She walks in and goes, "Hey guys," and they're like, "Hey," and that's it. Anyway, so Prince Federico of Italy, and then that means her mom is fucking Princess Julie. The fucking Princess Julie of Italy. Everybody loves Princess Julie, except for Britt. And Blair, who's seethingly jealous. She has to shit on Alexandria's mother right in front of Alexandria. She's just a dumb fucking stewardess from Ohio. But that's what makes Mrs. Garrett love her so much. It's the Cinderella story of it all. And Mrs. Garrett loves the Cinderella story, which is why she always has these 4 girls sweep up all the time.
Yeah, because they're like little mice.
Yes.
I do. So let's just pause for a second to talk about the fact that this little girl is being acknowledged as a princess.
Where's her accent?
What is her accent? What is this affectless voice that she has? She has a
It's
voice that's like this. She has this
it's
voice
such an
that
odd
basically
choice.
says, "Hi, where do I sleep? Do I sleep here? Where do I go? Where's upstairs? How do I get upstairs? Do I use the stairs to get
There's
upstairs?"
nothing princessly about her. It's like they got her in the mall at like Lids, like not even an
Yeah.
interesting store.
No. And but going back to this, I do think so. So I want to just pause and talk about like what Mrs. Garrett is talking about with the Cinderella story. So um, I think that this was so right at this time. This premiered on I looked this up because I wanted to be accurate. This premiered on January 5th, 1983.
This is our first 1983 episode.
Exciting.
We're out
I'm
of
sure it was.
1982. Congratulations, Britt.
I feel. Thank God. Anyway, so this was written probably at the tail end of 1982. And the reason why that's important is because Grace Kelly, who is Princess Grace of Monaco, died in September 1982. So that was in the news. And Princess Kelly, Grace Kelly, Princess of Monaco, married Prince Rainier III of Monaco in 1956, um, and then died in a tragic car accident in 1982. But she was she was regarded as the American princess. So it was like this, this princess dream of basically, becoming European royalty. How can you? Oh my God, we're American. How amazing! And then when she died, it was quite shocking. But at the exact same time as this is happening, Princess Diana was getting married. So I think there was a lot of like European princessy interest at this time. So I do think that, the facts of life people were like, let's throw a princess in here. Let's see how that goes, right? That princesses are a thing right now. So let's talk about that. Um, but I do also think that in that in February, so Princess Di and Charles got married in like I think at the end of mid 1981, and then by 82, um, in February of 1982, she was pregnant with William, and there were paparazzi photos of her that were published of her on vacation with Charles, and she's in a bikini, and she's like, I wouldn't say heavily pregnant because she was not a very big human, but like clearly like kind of naked, and like you don't see royalty this naked and this pregnant. Anyway, when this happened, when the paparazzis got these photographs, they then sold them to, tabloids and whatever in England, and it was such a scandal that the fact that these prying eyes had seen a princess in such an array. It's so scandalous to see, her tits and her body, making a baby. That the queen, after the photos were published, the queen had to issue a statement which was incredibly unusual because the queen doesn't say shit about anything ever, nor does the any royalty. Um, that's the thing, they just ignore everything. Anyway, so after the photograph was published, um, the queen said that this was the blackest day in all of British journalism. Really? I mean, I guess it's a little invasive, but again, I do think that at this point,
Maybe they mean black, like, like LL Cool J, just like awesome.
yes, yeah, mm-hmm. Chic. Black is always chic. No, but it was regarded as invasive and weird, and I think that this was the kind of turning point when because Diana was regarded as quote as always the people's princess. So, and she was extraordinarily photographed, and so I think it was just kind of in the zeitgeist, and so they were like, facts of life people were like, yeah, let's just put a princess on, see how that goes. But then they didn't give her any princessy trappings. They didn't give her any of the problems.
They didn't give her anything.
The only problem they gave her was parents who didn't want to come to a dumb dinner made by Mrs. Garrett.
Yeah, that is legitimately it. This is Tootie can't stand it, and obviously neither can Britt. I wrote that in my notes, and it was true. This is a real life princess. This is bananas. This is the closest they're ever going to come to Princess Di, and I find that to be such a slap in the face to say that in front of Princess Alexandria. It's like meeting Lisa Loeb and then going like, wow, this is the closest I'm ever going to come to meeting Michelle Branch. It's like, rude. To add insult to injury, Blair piles on and laughs about comparing Alexandria to an actual princess like Diana Scoff.
Yeah.
Then Blair watches, Blair gives her some ammunition. She mentions how it was great watching the wedding on television. And now Alexandria's like,
which again was an enormous event. That was like one of the biggest globally watched television events ever. It was
Alexandria wished she could have watched it on television.
Yeah.
But she couldn't because she was in the super crowded church. And it was a nightmare. Sorry.
Yeah.
And then she had to go to Buck.
No.
Buck?
So Alexandria says, I wish I could have watched it on TV. It was so crowded in the church you couldn't see anything. Then Daddy made me go to the reception at Buckingham Palace, which she says, and you said, what's her accent? This is where I determined it. Lisa from Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. She says Buckingham Palace in this absolutely bizarre way.
I wish I looked up where she was from. Maybe she was from SLC.
So yes, so then Blair is just like buck, and then Joe says, "You gonna lay an egg?"
Solid comedy. It's about as good as it's gonna get today.
That's true. Although I let me just add a small rejoinder. I actually, that I've spent some time in the UK.
Oh, I've heard.
Yeah, I actually have been to Buckingham Palace. Inside, I went to the Queen's garden party, with my then boyfriend and his dad. Was
the Queen there?
The Queen wasn't, unfortunately.
Then why was
I believe
this party?
So Philip was, as well as, I think maybe like Queen Anne. Like it was just, it wasn't. I wasn't getting the like A-listers.
the one that makes those cherries, right?
But it was one of those things where it was like I was required to wear a hat. I had to wear like stockings with sandals. Like it was one of those things where there was so much rigmarole that went into going to a thing for like an hour.
Sounds fun.
And so
I would love a rigmarole at this point. I haven't riggamed or rolled in about a year, so that sounds great.
But what I'm saying is that for something that was this was probably in, I don't know, 2002, 2003, maybe whatever. But for something that was basically a casual like party, a summer garden party, men were in morning suits, top hats, bats. Women were in they had to wear hats, they had to wear fascinators, all this shit for nothing. And so I found it kind of insulting that Facts of Life is trying to introduce this brown covered nothing girl as a princess. Like as it's like,
brown covered nothing girl.
The only thing that she had was all of her suitcases. And I was like, so she just has more suitcases than Blair.
And she doesn't. That is completely Blair's bit. That is Blair's bit She's done it
It
20 fucking
is.
times. She even complains when at one point she's like, "You guys helped her with her suitcase. You never helped me with mine. Every time I pull out my 20 suitcases, you're like, oh, she's doing that thing again."
Yeah,
Laugh track
and,
gonna go
and she's like,
nuts.
yeah, she's like, you don't help me with my fucking suitcases. And Natalie's like, we're talking princesses here.
Yeah. Anyway, so Alexandria delights in Blair's envying, gloatingly tells Blair not to be jealous, but apparently that is not a word in Blair's vocabulary. It is a word, however, that prompts Natalie to toast some fruit punch to jealousy. That makes complete sense.
I wrote down, can you explain this to me?
Which?
We're toasting jealousy?
Because that's like literally one of the motivators that gets Natalie out of bed every day.
Ah, okay. Fair enough.
And she was like, that's my primary operative mode. So yeah, let's toast to jealousy. Joe asks if she made it out of the country with some family jewels, and apparently she has quite a few, which prompts Joe to say that she's going to be buying plenty of tickets to the school play. I guess using rubies and gems.
Yeah, she accepts those. I mean, to be honest, Joe would know how to get rid of those.
That is true. I know a guy.
And Blair would just wear them. She'd be like, yeah, I don't know where they are. And there she is, just like wearing like a little tiara. I don't know. I mislaid it. I'm not sure where they are.
So Joe prompts her, says she's going to be buying these tickets, and that's basically the last we ever hear of Oedipus Rex, the musical.
Yeah.
The jukebox musical, Oedipus Rocks.
There it is. There it is. There it is.
There it is. All right. Well, obviously now I know what I'm going to be doing for the rest of my month, writing Oedipus Rocks. Anyway, so Tootie's so excited that all of these royalty are going to be coming to Oedipus Rocks. And Alexandria's like, no, you misunderstood. I said they'd buy a couple of rows. They're not going to come. So now Tootie has written this musical jukebox version of Oedipus Rex, and now she has to perform it to a mostly empty theater, thanks to Alexandria. All right, it's
to
just
be
gonna
perfectly
be
honest.
Nat.
To be perfectly honest, that's charity.
Yes.
That no one else has to witness this one-woman show of Oedipus Rocks. That the fact that Alexandria has prevented other people from going is charitable. That's her charity. Much like Princess Dies was, landmines and AIDS research. Alexandria is preventing people from seeing Tootie's bad musicals.
Alexandria gets real dark for a second. She explains that her parents always say boarding school is a great place to live, but they wouldn't want to visit. Do they really say that, Alexandria? I don't know that they say that. It's really fucked up.
But also, but as soon as Alexandria says, like, she's like, and Tootie's like, oh my God, I'm so excited. All this royalty is going to be at my horrible new play. She's like, Alexandria's like, no. I'm just buying a couple rows. And then she goes, like, and to be perfectly frank, this, honestly, if this is how it was written, then Jerry Mayer is racist. If this is how, Tootie decided to do the line reading, but she just says, what you mean they ain't come to my play? I lost my mind. I was like, what? Since when has Tootie ever been like this? She was almost turned out.
She met the guy that fills the candy bar machines that only were there that episode.
Oh yeah, that one black guy who was like, "Why don't you have any black friends?"
Yeah, and then she made her black
as soon as she feels threatened that like the royal family of the exiled royal family of Italy isn't going to be watching Oedipus Rocks, a show by Tootie Ramsey, she's like, "What you mean?" It's like shocking. I was like, "This is bad direction." You like, no, that's not how we do on this show.
Mrs. Garrett has them all move out and prepare for the lunch rush. Natalie pulls out Alexandria's chair and giggles. And Blair just smirks with her arms folded like she's getting Like she's Moose getting slimed on You Can't Do That on Television, which is a deep cut.
Mm.
Alexandria asks, which way is upstairs? Which I thought was genius.
Yeah.
Up.
Yeah.
Up.
Is she? So the big reveal later is that she runs away from boarding schools a lot.
Yes.
Right. By the time she gets to Eastland, this is her 5th boarding school that she's run away from.
That is correct.
So if I'm giving her the benefit of the doubt, maybe she just hasn't learned what stairs are, or she hasn't learned the word up.
I genuinely think that maybe also Jerry Mayer doesn't know the word up or what stairs are, or even what dungeons are, because Joe calls their room the Royal Dungeon, and dungeons, from what I understand, are downstairs. Is that correct?
They are downstairs.
Yeah.
Yeah. They could be downstairs. They could be at street level. If you're going to have a street level dungeon, I'm sure you frequented a dungeon one time in your life.
I don't know what that means.
Oh, any sort of dungeon?
I felt like it was a loaded question.
You've never been to, say, like, you've been to London?
Oh yeah, I was actually at the Tower of London, and they have dungeons there.
Yeah, and were those all the way underground? No, a lot of them are just the whole place. It's a jail. But like, yeah, like Joe's just like the Royal Dungeon. Like, find any other word.
Agreed. Anyway, with the arrival of the princess, Blair has fallen so far down the totem pole that Natalie is bossing her around. She goes, pick up a suitcase. You got arms. Blair protests. No one ever picks up her suitcases when she does her bi-weekly bit about overpacking. But Nat explains that these are princess suitcases. They are different.
Yeah.
And there's a certain social pecking order. Blair is no longer Big Bird.
No. And as I wrote down, like most episodes, for some reason, everyone delights in being total assholes to one another at all times. Natalie didn't need to say that like that. And then like cackle and run away with a suitcase.
She like gave her like 3 little like punches. She was like Alfred in the big fight when she's trying to beat up Mongo. He's like,
yeah.
Like 3 like inconsequential jabs, and then Blair's like, I'm gonna kill you. Go.
Yeah, like, okay, I'll take the fucking hat box, but Jesus Christ, Natalie, get the hell out of my face.
Yeah, the hat box. So now we are upstairs in the girls' room, and Alexandria wants to know which bed is hers, and Joe cheerfully whips out a sleeping bag. Where'd she get that from? And puts it on the hardwood floor. So rude. Princess or not, you do not let anybody who's a guest sleep on the floor.
Right. Unless they request it. Unless they're like, you know what? I prefer the floor. I have a bad back. It's like, really? Okay.
Yeah, but it's never like this is where you're sleeping, bitch. Which is what
the hell?
Joe did. And they all seem to be okay with it, including even Alexandria. She's like, I guess.
Yeah.
Can't Joe just bunk up with Blair the way she does when she thinks all the girls have gone to sleep?
Yeah. Who knows? I don't know. This was such a weird episode because it was like everyone was sort of selfish and like in a weird way, like not in a pointed way, but like in a just sort of like Joe not forgetting just social, like just being polite.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's your bed. That's your bed. Sleep on the table.
Also, it's just a point of my notes. It was at this point that I could not remember the word for a sleeping bag. So in my notes, I've over and over written bed bag.
Bed bag.
Bed bag. So Alexandria asks if the bed bag is supposed to be stuffed with something, and Joe goes, yeah, you. I liked that. That was good. No. That's exactly what I would have said. Natalie says she'll take the sleeping bag. She's used to it. She's not used to sleeping bags, bear in mind. She's used to being shit on.
Yeah, and having the
she's-
things that she loves taken from her,
Yeah.
like her father.
These are the things she's most comfortable with. So Alexandria pretends like she's not going to take it for an absolute split second, and then immediately moves her crap to Natalie's bed.
Yeah.
And then this is my favorite part of the episode right here.
Mm-hmm.
Tootie pulls out Alexandria's pennant collection, reads where they're from, and then goes, "Great pennant collection, Alexandria."
So yeah, I wrote down Tootie, because she's a sociopath, is fucking snooping through a stranger's belongings. Someone who is a member of a royal family, and she's just going through her shit.
See, my thought was Jerry Mayer.
After knowing her for 3 minutes.
Yeah, well, I agree with that. But...
If you went through, if the first time I'd met you, and then you were like, "Hey, can I look through your handbag?" I'd be like, "I'm never seeing you again," and then I'd mace you in the eyes. Like, who does this? Tootie is the person who does this.
Yeah. Also, it's not like she needed to unpack her pennants because she's fucking moving to another room tomorrow.
Yeah.
But the headline for me was not even that she snoops. The headline for me was that to be able to transition into this story of how many schools Alexandria has been kicked out of, I used air quotes, we needed a bunch of pennants, and we needed Tootie to say out loud, "Great pennant collection."
Yeah, because Alexandria has been kicked out of air quotes, Exeter, Miss Porter School for Girls, Foxcroft, and Groton.
Yes. 4 schools this year because of, well, stuff. So Blair unhappily brings in her oversized hat bag, Alexandria's, and then says she hates to spoil the fun, which Joe, a.k.a. Quick Draw Polnicek, says, "We know you just can't help yourself, lol." Blair wants
can I
to announce...
Can I go back to the pennants for a second?
Please.
So I was sort of like at this point in the episode, which we're probably like, I don't know, 12 minutes into by the time we're upstairs in the girls' room. At this point, I was like,
not even close.
No, 7 minutes, whatever. But I at this point, I was just like, I was like a dog with a bone. I was like, you know what, Jerry Mayer? I'm going to fucking fact check the shit out of this. I was like, not only, I was like, there are no French, there are no Italian kings. You know, I was just like, I'm coming for you, man. And I was like, okay. And I looked this up. So it is true. Exeter, Miss Porter's, Foxcroft, and Groton are all co-ed schools, important schools. Or no, Miss Porter's isn't. But but this just led me down the like rabbit hole of like, oh, I wonder who an interesting alumnus who went to Groton. Do you know anyone who went to Groton?
Just a big face sandwich boy. Alexandria's boyfriend. I don't know.
Oh, that guy. Yeah. Sorry. So a lot of the Roosevelts went there. Teddy, all of his brothers, whatever. But most notably that I found is Fred Gwynn went there. You know who that is?
Of course, Herman Munster.
Herman Munster.
I just watched My Cousin Vinny.
And the judge, that was his last role in My Cousin Vinny. He plays the judge, the two Utes, yeah. But also, he is in Pet Sematary, where when the cat gets run over, Church, R.I.P. Church, he's like, he goes, "It's your cat now," in that very creepy Fred Gwynnish voice. Anyway, so that's a small tidbit about Groton.
Thank you. Small tidbit about Groton on my end. Best with Gruyere.
Oh, Groton.
Oh, Groton. Anyway, so Blair wants to announce it's time to serve lunch. Tootie doesn't want to do the tuna casserole because last time she forgot to douche, and she used that as an excuse for her fishy scent for days.
So, yeah,
I know
Blair
you did some tuna research.
So, So first of all, I think this sets up a little moment where, so after the pennant situation, where Tootie's like, whoa, 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 you got kicked out of 4 schools, and she's like, yeah, 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 just this year. They're like, all the girls are. Aside, Blair hasn't even entered yet, but all the girls are like, what? You got kicked out of school, 4 different schools,
Just
and
this
she's
year.
like, yeah, this year, and they're like, we've been trying to get kicked out of this fucking school for years. Please tell us your secrets. We can't leave. This is jail.
Everything, every time we do something, that just makes us do more work. We're gonna be
They
trapped
make
with
it
this old
worse.
lady for the next 5-6 years.
We sent her to jail. We stole the van. You know, it's like we're doing anything we can to get kicked out of this goddamn school, and you've been
I
kicked out
faked
of
an
4.
abortion. Natalie screams.
Yeah, and so they're sort of shocked. They're like, "What? You kicked out of 4 schools?" But they act surprised, and then they're like, "Well, how come?" And she's like, and again, could have been any line, but what did they give out? What did Jerry Mayer write for her? Oh, stuff,
Stuff.
stuff, stuff,
It's a princessy response.
stuff. Anyway, so yeah, so Blair comes in with the hat box. It's like, yeah, we got to keep going. We got to do the lunch thing, whatever. And Tootie's like, yeah, she's like, I'm like, please don't make me have to serve the tuna casserole because the last time I did it, I smelled like low tide for days, which is super gross. Do you like tuna casserole?
No, I don't like. I like tuna steaks. Like I like a rare tuna. I like tuna in my sushi. I do not like tuna salad.
Yeah. Do you like tuna niçoise?
That's where it's seared and has
You
like
can
the
have both
olives
seared.
and stuff.
Yeah. And
I
an
don't like
egg.
olives, and I don't like eggs.
Okay. So no, you can just say
I
no.
like the tuna.
Okay. So you like the tuna. In any case, so I was like, and again, I don't like tuna casserole. I don't really like casserole that much just because I find that I'm not one of those weird people who's like, none of my food can touch one another before I eat it. I have a friend of mine who basically is like, she's my age, she has 3 children, and she's still like kind of the mindset where she like wants one of those old cafeteria bowls that like, or plates that divides it up so that you have the one that has the peas. Here's where the potatoes go, and here's where your main goes. She's like, I don't like any of this stuff intermingling. Anyway, I'm not a big tuna casserole fanatic or casserole in general, but I was sort of like, you know what? Tootie doesn't get to shit on this thing just because Jerry Mayer might not like it.
Did you just
Anyway,
call Tootie Toonie?
Toonie, Toonie. But so I was researching it. So tuna casserole is widely maligned as a 1950s Midwestern housewife recipe that relies on canned stuff you already have. But it actually originates from the Pacific Northwest in the 30s. So it's tuna fish, canned mushroom soup, and cornflakes.
I don't think I'd like that.
No, me neither. Anyway, but the first like recipe that was determined to be published of it was published in Sunset Magazine by a Mrs. W.F.S. who resided in Kennewick, Washington in 1930. But the best one that I found
Fuck sakes.
is another recipe for it is tuna fish and noodles casserole. The noodles were added a bit later. It was published, actually, it was published the same year in a magazine that ran from 1913 to 1974 called Modern Hospital Magazine. And
so tuna noodle casserole came from Modern Hospital Magazine?
That's right.
That makes complete sense.
Yes, it does.
Gross.
It's super gross, but also it's like I guess they did and Natalie did make the joke about how the food isn't bad for prison food. So prison and hospitals, similar vibe.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Dining wise.
Alexandria is dead shocked to find out the girls work at the cafeteria, and rightfully so. She is all of us who didn't watch those 2 episodes where they shenanigan themselves into indentured servitude. And so she asks, like, don't they have people for that? And yeah, they really should. But no, they seem to save money for several years on cafeteria staff.
I wrote the exact same thing. It's like she's like, well, don't you have people to do this, like staff, like people who are like, and they're like, yeah, us. And then she's like, but why? And I wrote down, yeah, good question. And then Joe very light, she's like, well, we only do it for the money. And I was like, no, they don't.
Yeah, they don't. They don't have money.
They're indentured servants.
They have never once been like, thanks for the paycheck.
No, they're working off the room that they ruined and the van. They're still working that shit off.
I mean, I guess you could argue we only do it for the money, ... that we owe to the school, ... for the multiple things that we did.
Like 3 years. How?
Yeah.
Like,
it's coming up. They're almost done. Alexandria asks why the fuck they do it. And Blair stays behind to say they do it for the money. She does it because it's fun, adding a massive amount of confusion to a situation that was already massively confusing if you're a fan of the show.
Yeah. Because there's no it's like it makes no sense.
No, it doesn't. It is exactly like it makes no sense because it doesn't. So now they're in the kitchen and they're getting ready for lunch, and Tootie cannot wait to introduce Alex to all the girls. Thing is, all the girls that Tootie knows are in this room. We learned that Natalie.
What about the cast of thousands for Oedipus Rocks?
I thought that was a one-woman show. We learned that Natalie wasn't being completely benevolent in giving up her bed because she usurps Tootie's right to introduce her to the girls, unless Tootie wants to give up her bed for the night. So rude. Tootie just said how excited she was about this, and then immediately Natalie's like, nope. Maybe Tootie can introduce her to the Jermaine Jackson fan club, and Natalie can introduce her to the staff of the paper that probably hates her because she still works there after faking that abortion in the scandal of 1982.
Even though she was told that she has to, quit the paper.
Mrs. Garrett is worried because she wants Alexandria to eat. It's been a long trip up from wherever she came from.
Which is not true, because if she came from Groton, she came from Massachusetts.
No, she came from Central Casting. Okay. Blair, who decided that she knows all about princessery, says she's not hungry. She eats like a bird. Smash cut to Alexandria having just feasted on this big-faced dude's sausage, and now she's going down on a hoagie.
Yeah. What looks like how would you describe this sandwich?
Unappealing?
Okay. Beyond that, more specific.
Lettucey.
Oh. See, I thought it looked sort of labial and hammy.
It didn't look good, but apparently Greg says that this place in town makes the best sub sandwiches.
Yes. So we smash cut to the room where Little Miss Princess is chowing down on this huge sandwich, right? Being like, oh yeah, Greg, oh my God. And he's like, yeah, I found a really good sandwich shop in town. It's just like that place that we found in Groton or whatever. And it's sort of like, what is happening here? Who's this person?
Well, let me tell you.
Here? Yeah.
His name is Greg, and he's played by Jimmy Barron, who has not been in many things, but I have seen almost all of the things that he's been in.
That doesn't surprise me at all.
He got his start in the Steve Guttenberg, Bruce Jenner Village People musical, Can't Stop the Music.
That sounds good.
I own it on DVD. It was directed by Nancy Walker, who is the bounty lady who played Rhoda's mom on Rhoda and the Mary Tyler Moore Show. It's a little Jewish redheaded lady. She directed the Village People movie. It's the only movie she ever directed. It's also the only PG movie that has penises in it.
How did they have that work out?
It just happened because the content is so stupid, and that I think the censors were like, "This is a dumb movie for kids. I'm not going to sit through this whole thing." And they missed the part where they're doing the YMCA dance at the gym, and there's just penises flopping around at the gym doing the YMCA dance. It's a movie that I feel like you should see. Bruce Jenner is great in it. Steve Guttenberg starts off the movie roller skating and then going, "My time is now," and it freeze frames on him with his fist in the air, and then it goes, "Can't stop the music." It's great. Anyway, he was in that, and he played.
Do you see? Do you see his penis?
I don't believe you do.
Hmm.
He doesn't have a name in that movie. He's also a patient on MASH, and he played boy teenager in Jacqueline Suzanne's Valley of the Dolls.
Oh.
He was in Heart to Heart, which of course I loved. He played Greg here. He was in the Gary Coleman, Robert Goulet TV movie, The Kid with the 200 IQ, which you can see on YouTube. And the poster for the movie has Gary Coleman's head popped open like it has a hinge on it, and then his brains spell out the word "the kid with the 200 IQ." Very,
Yeah,
very
you
troubling.
sent me the image of that, and I said no. That was all I wrote back, and you said
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
and I said no, and you said what? And I said no. That's how our conversation.
You said no,
went
it
about
looks
that.
bad, and I said no, it's good. That was the end. Newhart, he was in. So I'm sure I saw that because I've seen all the Newharts. He was in Quincy M.E. Risky Business, where he played the memorable character Kid at Window. This guy had no luck, and he was in so many things, and they just would never give him a name. He was in Double Trouble. He was in The Sure Thing, where he played Guy at Frat Party. And then in 1985, he disappeared, only to come back in 2008. I was going to do the math, and I was like, it's not worth it. In 2008, was 23 years later, for the teen comedy Sex Drive, which I remember because it had like a guy dressed as a donut on the poster, like hitchhiking. Anyway, he played Church Dad in Sex Drive, still not getting a freaking name, even though he had the 28-year comeback. And then last year, out of nowhere, he does 16 episodes of something called The Pop Culture Show, where he played Jimmy. So he finally got that name.
Oh wow, what a unique name.
Yes.
I will say this about this man. I've also I have seen A Sure Thing. Isn't that a teenage rom com from like the late '80s or the early '90s?
Mid 80s.
Yeah. But I described him as this, he's this weird dude, wearing a plaid shirt underneath a baby blue cable knit cashmere sweater.
I also talked about his wardrobe.
And his haircut. So this was shot in like 1982. His haircut is like Dorothy Hamill, that she retired that haircut in 1976 once she won the world championships and the Olympics. She was like, I got to get rid of this haircut. And he was like, no, that's my shit. I want the pole.
To be fair, Jimmy Bayo had this exact haircut in the Academy and the Academy 2.
Yeah, I don't care.
That
These
is
kids looked okay with.
That was a boy's haircut in 1982, 83. It was like weird. It was like hair grew that way. Anyway, so he explains he got the sub from a shop in town. He bought a few, and he's storing the rest of them in his cheeks. He is psyched about all of the fun they're going to have here. I'm sorry, she is. She is psyched about all the fun they're going to have here. But he, I don't like it at all. He's
No.
stuck in a military academy.
Yeah, he's like, it's like jail. I got to get out of here.
Yeah, maybe they'll instill some dress sense into him because the powder blue lilac coordinate sweater with the wide beige plaid lapels is not good. It's not a good look. Apparently,
No.
these two know each other. They're on the boarding school circuit, but he's ready to bail. It's only been a week. He can't hack it there. There's this doofus clicking his heels all the time. This little guy with these baby pink nipples, and Jimmy Bayo has the same hair as him. It's too much for poor Greg. Greg is the name of my cat, who I had to lock up in my bedroom because last time we did this podcast, he cut up my hand so badly it still looks like I may never be a hand model again. She doesn't like this news at all about Greg,
No.
about Greg wanting to move. He wants her to come with him. She thought she was going to check this place out, see what the Eastland scene was like. He said they're all alike. And she's like, no, this one's different. They have some students that are slaves here. I got to figure out what's going on. It makes no sense. I got to get to the bottom of it. But also, every time I leave the cafeteria, I end up back in the cafeteria. I don't know what's going on. I don't even know how I got in this room. I'm afraid to leave because I'm afraid I'm going to be back in the cafeteria again.
Yeah, basically it's like being in an MC Escher painting. Yeah, no, it's like you come in, you go out, you come in a different door, you're somehow back in the cafeteria or upstairs.
He convinces her, and she is still packed, so maybe she'll meet him at the bus stop tonight.
And then they have this like very sort of like weird chaste hug.
Yeah, it's sexy. It's there to make Tootie think that intercourse definitely just happened.
Clothes fully on.
Well, what happens after you're done having sex? You put your genitals away behind clothes. That's where the expression behind closed doors comes from.
Yeah, because that's how I refer to my fly, my clothes door.
Yeah. Anyway, so Tootie basically walks in and she's got some extra soup for Alex, but she is dead shocked to find a large-faced man in her bedroom.
Yeah.
Tootie's
She
flipping out.
shrieks. She's like, "You can't be here. We have rules."
Yeah, she's absolutely livid. But Alex is completely unbothered by Tootie's freak out and says, "Isn't Greg a trip? Like, how would you know? The only thing you know about Greg is that he was on your face and he's got a giant face. Those are the two facts. And they're both face related. That doesn't tell me that Greg's a trip."
He brought her those sandwiches.
That's true. And then she's like, "We ran away from Groton together, and that's not easy because of all the melty cheese sticking to our feet."
Yeah. Anyway, so Tootie's like, "You got to get out of here. You got to get out of here." And then,
well, this is where Tootie picks up on the inconsistency, and she's like, "I thought you got kicked out of Groton. Like,
yeah,
pick one thing to be freaked out at a time, Tootie.
Yeah.
What fucking difference does it make if she was kicked out of Groton or she ran away? If she left, that's less concerning to me, honestly. Like, if she got kicked out, she probably did something dangerous or illegal. No reason to be kicked out. She runs away. She's just fickle. That's fine.
Yeah.
That seems less troubling, but not to Tootie.
No, because the thing about it, suddenly, like, Tootie's some sort of, like, rule follower.
She always was, unless poker's involved.
Or drinking a whole bottle of wine.
But she was the rule follower there, and then they all were like, "We have to drink without Tootie." And then she was like, "Oh, yeah, you think I can't drink? You think I can't drink?" Anyway, so Tootie wants Greg to leave the same way he came in, which is apparently climbing up the ivy. How did he know where to find Alexandria? We're free cell phone. How does he know, like, which ivy to trellis to climb up?
But again, also, hasn't Alexandria been upstairs supposedly napping this whole time? And there's one phone in the entire building.
I don't understand how any of this episode happened.
Yeah, no, it's as I said, it's so incompetent.
I don't understand why a princess would be here, or why a princess would be in multiple schools in America.
But so I at least understand that, because at least it's sort of like, the point is that, like, ultimately the thing is that for Alexandria is that she feels neglected by her parents, and all of these running away scams are you know
That I get.
asking.
What I don't get is why they have sent her to random shithole boarding schools in America. Like there were nice ones on that list, but now she's at Eastland, and like I feel like there are probably some fancier places with maybe higher security, maybe closer to where you are. So when she runs away, she's not in a completely different country. There's just options that I feel like all the choices that were made. I don't get Alexandria's family. That's
No,
all I'm saying.
well, I do think so. Exeter, I don't know that much about Foxcroft, but Miss Porter's and Groton are all extremely respectable, you know, boarding schools in the United States. I do think that a lot of European, possibly royalty, but like wealthy people would send their kids to boarding schools in America in the same way that wealthy Americans send their kids to boarding school in Europe so that they can get a more, well-rounded education and a, firm understanding of like different cultures. However, I will say this, that the people that I know who've gone to boarding school in America, and these are mostly Americans, not Europeans, mostly felt rejected by their family, because Americans, while we do have a boarding school, tradition, it's not as old as it is in Europe. So, and America is a sort of more youthful country, and we I think Americans sort of like having their children around them, whereas in Europe it's sort of like, get out of here until you're 18, then you can come back and work for the firm or work for, marry someone or whatever. But like, it is an odd choice. But I will say, I do think that by Jerry Mayer putting Eastland on the list with Groton, Exeter, Miss Porter's, he's basically saying that Eastland is at the same level as those places.
And it just doesn't seem like it is. It just
It
feels
doesn't.
like, and I'm not even saying like, oh, you're getting a bad education at Eastland or anything like that. It just feels like those are like strict places where you like, who to do, and you like you have tea
Yeah.
time and things.
Yes.
I liked how
Rather
you like,
than
yeah,
serving
the
tuna,
to do.
rather than serving tuna casserole that makes you smell like low tide.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, I also, it's at this point that I noticed that Greg was trying to get a catchphrase going, because multiple times with Alexandria, he was like, maybe not. And I didn't pick up on it as being a thing until Tootie says, the trellis will hold you. And then he's like, maybe not. Now he's got like a whole bunch of subs in his cheeks. Anyway, so he stops to tell Alex that he'll be at the bus station at midnight, and maybe he'll go to Phoenix. And now that Tootie knows, I guess everybody's gonna know. Tootie tells Alex she's not running away with him. Why? Just let this princess go. What do you need her for? How dynamic do you find her as a person? She's not been funny or nice or interesting. She's
Yeah.
no things. Just let her go. Apparently,
Yeah.
she does this all the time. Why are you invested in this? Is this just so you can tell people you know a princess, Tootie? You can't even do that.
Yes.
Natalie is doing that. Natalie got that privilege because Natalie will be sleeping on the floor.
Yeah, but so Tootie sort of shames her. She's like, your parents will be worried sick, and then you finally get the hint that you get the idea that, Alexandria is running away from all of these expensive schools as a cry for help.
Yes. But Tootie will not let well enough go. She has her pitch. She goes, this is a great place. We have great times here. You'll see, which is very similar to my pitch to Britt to join this podcast.
This is a
And
great
Alex,
place. We'll have great times. You'll see.
well,
And as
everything,
I've always
but it's a
said,
great
this
show.
place is
We'll have
basically
great
prison.
Alex is torn, and we know this because the camera zooms in slowly on her face for quite a while.
15, 20 seconds.
Anyway, and then we're back from commercial break.
Yeah. And where are we? We're in the kitchen.
Now We are 12 minutes into the episode. Yes, it is the same day, which is a nice change because normally, like when we come back from commercial break, it's like it could be 30 days from now. Alex and Tootie come down the stairs, and Alex hands her soup to Natalie, who seems like a doting mother, concerned she didn't touch her soup. She's too busy touching big faces schlong upstairs. Tootie wants to shout, but she holds back. Blair cracks wise, but Alex doesn't have her school uniform. Perhaps she's waiting for her TR to come in. When was Alex so ostentatious that this joke actually works, Blair? Your jealousy is so intense, it's coming off super ugly. As ugly as Alex's sweater.
Yeah, but also not in a like genuine way. Like if this, again, it's like she looks like such a boring person and acts like such a boring person with no discernible accent, right? And no airs, and no sort of like you pick up my stuff and then I go to my own quarters. No, why am I sleeping on the ground? That like either play up the princess aspect or or make it so that she's like a cool princess, And so then when Blair's just like, oh, she doesn't have one because she's waiting for her TR to get like fitted, then it makes Blair look insane because she hasn't put those airs on.
She hasn't put anything on. She's put a brown sweater on, and she was like, that's all the character that you're getting this year. Anyway, Tootie is being insufferable with this new information. She wants to take Alex to get her uniform because it'll make her feel so here.
It was so weirdly and underwritten, and then Natalie's just like, and then it's like, Tootie has this goddamn fucking like meltdown. She has like a panic attack about Alexandria not getting her uniform, and then I can't remember who.
Yeah, like it's a Jermaine Jackson ticket.
Yeah, and I can't remember who says it, but it's like it's everyone sort of like, what's the deal here? And then Natalie goes, she has a uniform fetish. And I was like, you know what, Natalie? So do a lot of people.
Yeah, that is an actual fetish. So it felt weirder coming out of a 15-year-old's mouth.
Yeah.
Than a normal joke might have. That's sort of like your Oedipus Rex theory. It's like, that's a thing, Jerry Mayer. Pick something else.
Yeah. Like, just be like, oh, she wants to see her fit in. Tootie always wants to make sure that people feel comfortable here. Or who gives a shit? But like, it's like, no, Tootie has a uniform fetish. Like she likes
like Jerry Mayer
firemen.
School uniform fetish.
Yeah.
Anyway, so Mrs. Garrett comes in absolutely delighted to inform Alex that her parents are coming up for dinner. Everyone, including Alex, is thrilled by the news. Apparently a man with a wonderful accent called, and he sounded very handsome, which could mean only one thing. It's Alphonso.
Yeah.
Yes.
Of course.
Oh, did he sound handsome? That's Alphonso.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently Prince Federico and Princess Julie are on their way to take Alex out, and she's over the moon about it. Like, she's never met her parents before. Like, nobody's ever been excited about seeing their parents. She even asked Mrs. Garrett if she's kidding, which would be such a rude and weird thing to kid about. Yes,
I don't. But like this is.
I was. Your parents aren't coming. I was excited because they're royalty, so I just wanted to live in the fantasy for a while and just pretend like they're coming. Let's pretend.
I wanted to fuck with a 14-year-old girl's happiness and expectations. But like someone says, she's like, it's like, are you kidding? And then Tootie says, Mrs. Garrett never kids about phone calls.
She doesn't.
Since when did that become a thing?
I don't know. I think they made it up for this.
But it's just such a bizarre thing. Mrs. Garrett never lies about telephone calls.
Yeah, no.
She might lie about other stuff. She might call you a bitch to your face. But if there was a phone call, you will get accurate information.
So weird. It was such a weird thing to say. And Alex decided she's going to wear her uniform to dinner. That's right. Let's go get that uniform. And Tootie just cries with happiness.
Yeah.
Nat's gonna die. Princess Julie's gonna be here, and Mrs. Garrett's also gonna die. And then there's some pretty good wordplay. They'll have adjoining plots because Natalie's Jewish.
Oh yeah, I literally wrote that down. I wrote Mrs. Garrett and Natalie are plotting over meeting royalty, and then they'll have adjoining plots.
Yeah,
same brain.
Cute.
Yeah.
I assumed it was intentional of Jerry Mayer or somebody on the staff. But Alex wants this to be perfect. So she's thinking of an out-of-the-way restaurant. I mean, they're in Peekskill, so everything's kind of out of the way. But I heard about this good hoagie shop in town.
Yeah.
Before Mrs. Garrett can reply with a restaurant and recommend, Blair chimes in cockily. She knows all the hot spots in Peekskill. She recommends a country club that her parents attend that even though they don't live anywhere near Peekskill. Weird. But Alex isn't into it. Daddy hates institutional food. Fuck him.
But hold on. So when Blair says, she goes, I would recommend the local country club, which my parents are members of, because my mother finds the food very adequate. If I know that might be like weird, bullshit, rich person, like understatement. But if anyone described anything I ever did or wore or made or how I looked as very adequate, I would kill myself. Like, that's such an obnoxious thing to say. Like,
I feel like that's an accurate description of this podcast.
But I thought it's sort of like, oh, I'm so glad we had sex for the first time. How was that? Adequate.
No. Very adequate.
Very adequate. Very adequate.
Honestly, you know what? I'm kind of hard up. I would be flattered. I'd be like, thanks. That's better than I thought I was going to do. Anyway. Yeah, I see where this is going. Since Daddy hates institutional food, I'm pretty sure that we're firing up the strudel maker.
Mm-hmm.
And the strudel maker is Mrs. Garrett.
We're not firing the strudel maker. We're firing up the chocolate mousse maker, Mrs. Garrett.
Well, yes, but the strudel maker is Mrs. Garrett. Mm-hmm. She's just making chocolate mousse. The strudel maker can make a lot of different dishes.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Mrs. Garrett suggests Shay Edna and then goes, I'm Edna. It'll be cozy and quiet. Mrs. Garrett brags about learning the art of haute cuisine in Paris.
No. She goes, I learned the art of haute cuisine in Paris. And then winks.
Continuity. I wish they'd bring up that she also learned the art of flying in an airplane, but they don't seem to bring that one up ever. They settle on Shay Edna, and Alex invites them all to join. How very, very exciting.
Yeah. And then this is where, like, I was just like, what is even happening? Why do I have 4 more pages of notes to get through here, Dominik? Okay, so
this is going to be a long podcast, and this was such a nothing episode.
We're back in the fucking cafeteria, and Mrs. Garrett is fretting over everything. She's like, does the table look nice? Does the table look fine? The table look fine? Does the table look fine? Does the table look okay? And they're putting flowers on it. There are these incredibly ugly red candlesticks on the table. Yeah.
Will the prince know that the finger bowls are egg cups?
Yeah. So I was like, first of all, yes, he's royalty. Second of all, those goddamn finger bowls should not even be on the table at this point. Finger bowls traditionally come out at the end of the meal after you've been dining a la Russe, which means one course after another. And the finger bowl comes out right before you get your dessert course. And it comes out in a little plate with a doily underneath, usually maybe some water and a flower or like a piece of lemon in there. And you just sort of like, you wash your fingers a little bit very delicately. And this is like, it's a very specifically weird, annoyingly fussy custom because when you are doing extremely like fine dining, This is the one time when you as a diner in a large group setting are supposed to actually remove the doily with the finger bowl and put it somewhere on the table yourself rather than any of the wait staff.
That
All
sounds
of the other
exhausting.
people, no, but all of the, it's like if you don't follow that rule, then everyone knows that you're faking it. You know, you're not Princess Diana. You know what I mean?
Won't they know that you're not Princess Diana since
She's dead.
Yeah.
Well, in any case, you know, a lot of people like, but again, that's just such a sort of old joke of like, oh my God, she drank the finger bowl. Oh,
Yes,
the
they
finger
are
bowls
obsessed
egg
with
cups.
bringing up finger bowls on this show. They are. They love it.
Anyway, yeah.
Joe polishes silverware with her school uniform while Mrs. Garrett gives them a quick etiquette refresher.
Yeah.
Remember what I told you to think of your spoon as a little sailboat?
Mm-hmm.
Joe looks up at her like she's crazy. Like Mrs. Garrett has not said this before, even though Mrs. Garrett said, remember what I told you. I think she's throwing that around willy-nilly because
We've never heard that before.
A little sailboat? Like, I genuinely felt like Joe had not heard that was the words that were going to come out of Mrs. Garrett's mouth, because that was like the most authentic acting in the entire episode. She was like,
yeah,
you kidding me? Anyway, Joe is shocked by the whole thing as Mrs. Garrett tries to show them how it goes out to port and then back to sea, or back out to sea and then back to port.
It goes out, and she uses the bowl, and she explains, she takes the spoon, and she goes, the spoon goes out to sea, because you don't scoop when you eat soup in public. You use it, you sort of drift your spoon out to sea, and then you bring it back to port and into your mouth. And then she says, remember, it's not a sloop, so don't slurp. Again, I was like, fucking Jerry Mayer. A sloop is a sailboat.
Yes, that's what I wrote.
I can't believe this.
I wrote, I am deeply confused by this bit.
It's just the words. It's like you could have just been like, you could have just had Mrs. Garrett be like, don't slurp. You know, don't cause a hurricane and don't slurp. You know, but it's like, it's just this dumb wordplay that makes no sense. And it's just like incorrect and a lie. I don't want to teach you little girls that sloops aren't little sailboats. They are literally little sailboats. They are a single mast sailboat.
I don't know what to say about this. I wrote, I'm deeply confused by this bit. That's all I can say. Mrs. Garrett's being really stressed about Joe being at this thing. She gives Joe some last minute bread buttering advice. You break off a piece and you butter it separately. Don't butter the whole slice.
Don't butter the whole slice. And then just this really gross, like, arm hand, like she's like lubing up her hands to insert them into someone's rectum.
Well, she's like she's gonna birth a cow.
Yeah, but also, again, incorrect. You were supposed to take butter from the butter dish, or unless you have your own personal butter, you do break a piece off, but you should put the butter on your plate first, then you put it onto your piece of bread. You certainly wouldn't slather it onto a giant piece of bread and then just chow down on it.
That's how I do it.
Yeah, but how many times have you dined with royalty?
7.
At Eastland Academy.
Joe misinterprets this to mean that they are short on butter, and Mrs. Garrett's like, yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, Mrs. Garrett's like, I can't even with you. And then just like looks up into the sky and it's just like, ah!
Blair's really excited to watch the Joe show. Usually Blair just tells her what a finger bowl is and then has to wait for Joe to get back to hear the report. But this time she gets to watch the whole humbling, humiliating finger bowl situation go down. And Joe basically tells her to eat shit and die. And Blair's like, naturally.
Yeah.
Alex comes in wearing her uniform, which fits better than any of the other girls' uniforms.
Yeah,
she hopes that, it's just that I feel like the other girls' uniforms have been worn for 3 years solid and washed once a week, and they're just tired. And this one was like, oh, we had to get a new one for this one. Alex comes in and basically she hopes that Mrs. Garrett didn't go to too much trouble, which is what you say when you want Mrs. Garrett to list a bunch of foods in a thick French accent.
No,
Today
she
it's
goes,
quiche.
she goes, trouble? No, I just whipped up a little quiche, some lobster au bechamel, and my traditional chocolate mousse. Honestly, sounds good. I would eat. I would eat
Yeah,
any
well,
of
it's
those
vegetarian.
It's not.
Pescatarian.
Yeah.
But no strudel.
No.
Blair hears the noise and knows exactly what kind of car it is. It's a vintage 59 Rolls-Royce limo, which is not a thing that rich people can do. It's not even a thing car people can do. But regardless, Nat walks to the window, and lo and behold, Nat, at 15, knows exactly how to identify a vintage 59 Rolls-Royce limo and goes, she's right.
Also, does it strike you as in line with Blair being the person who can identify car noises? No,
Nope.
that's Joe.
Yeah.
If anyone, Joe would be able to identify what kind of car that is.
That is correct. It seemed like a missed opportunity. But Mrs. Garrett flips into action. She goes, I'll greet them. You bow and scrape. I had not heard bow and scrape before. I Googled it, and it is a thing. It means to behave obsequiously or too deferentially. For example, in this store, the salesperson virtually bow and scrape before the customers. Apparently, you have to bow so deep that your foot draws back and scrapes the ground. Learn something new every day.
Yeah, bow and scrape.
Never heard it.
It's sort of like the bend and flip. Is that what it is from
Bend and snap.
Snap? It's like that. It's basically the same, except
Do you remember them flipping?
Yeah.
In walks Alphonso.
Yes.
The girls remain bent until Alexandria says, "Don't worry, it's just Alphonso. You don't have to bend for him."
Yeah, no. So Mrs. Garrett runs around like when she's like, "Okay, you need to bend and scrape. You need to bend and scrape. You need to bend and scrape." All the girls seemingly know what that means, which they clearly do not, because they just basically go over, waist over, and just lie there like they're trying to relax their back. Like,
yes.
They're not being obsequious. They're just like both arms are down like gorillas.
They look broken.
And then in comes this dude, and Mrs. Garrett's like still screaming and running around. She looks as though she's gonna fall over. It looks as though she had like too many martinis. It's like she's been drinking while making that lobster thermidor or whatever the fuck she's been making.
Lobster au bechamel.
Oh, bechamel. I know. Sorry.
So let's talk about Alphonso, who is clearly there to fuck Mrs. Garrett.
No. Mrs. Garrett was just like, oh, wait. She was like, oh, you mean the royal family isn't coming?
Well, that's okay.
Excellent. Yeah. It was like, I literally wrote down, Mrs. Garrett's panties are soaking wet.
They're on the floor at this point. It was insane. Anyway, let's talk about him. He's played by British-born actor Patrick Horgengott. Do you want to? I'm going to spell it for you, and you can give me how they would pronounce it overseas, where you spent some time. HOR GANGOT.
Wow, that's quite a name. Horgengott. Yeah.
Nailed it. All right. So Patrick Horgengott, who got his start in the 1950s doing mostly BBC productions before getting his big break in the U.S. with Car 54, Where Are You? He will play the wonderfully named Byron Cavendish on The Girl from U.N.C.L.E., and he did a Mission Impossible, Green Acres, Star Trek, Bewitched, Ryan's Hope, Guiding Light, the Casablanca TV series, and then the George Washington miniseries where he played General Howe. And then he capped off his career with A Cosby Show and Adventures of Pete and Pete, One Life to Live, and then my favorite Woody Allen film. Want to guess?
Interiors.
Curse of the Jade Scorpion. Yeah. Anyway, that's Alphonso for you. He's got some bad news. It's only him. Her parents don't care for her. They're not coming. She gets it. They never liked her. She introduces Alphonso to her friends, but he's like, well, since I'm here, I might as well get something out of it and fuck this loose-looking redhead. He kisses her hand. She is literally so into it. She's literally into the attention of virtually any man. If anybody's like, oh, hello, could be like a teenager. And she's like, woo-hoo.
So his name is, the character's name is Alfonso Valente, right? Yeah. I am the prince's chargé d'affaires. And I looked that up. So mom and dad couldn't even send like a high-ranking official. They sent the lowest of the low. This guy doesn't even qualify as like a real ambassador or a diplomat. He's who you send when everyone else is busy. This is according to the Vienna Conference on Diplomatic Relations from 1961. So Jerry Mayer, maybe he just pulled that title out of his ass, or just looked at a book and was like, that sounds cool. No one's going to know. But he somehow managed to choose. It's sort of like, yes, I am Alfonso Valente. I am the janitor.
I mean, if you think about it, we know that Alexandria's parents absolutely hate her. And so why would they bother sending anybody but the lowest of the low to give her the news that they're not coming?
Of course. And so he's like, hello. He's like, I'm Alfonso Valente, the prince's chargé d'affaires. And she's like, I'm a Garrett, cool dietitian. And
yes. He says he knows he's a poor substitute for
he
parents.
goes, I know I am. He says to Alexandria, I know I am a poor substitute. And then Mrs. Garrett, I thought she was going to lose her dentures at this point. She's like, not necessarily.
Yeah, it's all the saliva.
It was so much. It was like, as I've described multiple people on this show, it's like Looney Tunes. As soon as someone sees someone they want to fuck, it's like, awooga. It's like Mrs. Garrett could not keep her clam in her pants. I bet she smelled like low tide by this point.
I bet she did too. And she's absolutely no concern that poor Alexandria's heart is breaking. She's like, I'm getting laid. This is better than meeting a prince. Alphonso explains that they had to go to Willie Nelson concert at the White House, which is interesting because it appears to be a reference to when Willie Nelson smoked pot on the roof of the White House with Jimmy Carter's son. Surprisingly topical.
In 1977.
Yes.
Yeah.
But the fact that it was his son only came out this year.
Yes, that's true.
Alex is hurt, and Alphonso is trying to do her parents' bidding. She says it's okay. She walks away very sad, and Mrs. Garrett tries to turn this night into a guaranteed booty call. And it's insane when she's like, oh, but you must stay. Like,
oh, really?
It was as though it came from her vagina.
Like, she, like everyone's sort of like you can see the visible disappointment from all the girls, all of them, including Alexandria, who's deeply, sad about this.
Yeah.
Because her parents are clearly demonstrating that they don't give a shit about her at all. But then Mrs. Garrett's like, whoa, where are you going? I made my quiche. I made my lobster au bechamel and my traditional chocolate mousse. And then he's like, no. He's like, I mustn't. And then she goes, oh, but you must. It was like the lowing of a cow in labor.
It sounded like it was her vagina speaking. It was definitely her nether regions that made that line of dialogue come out of her body.
And I wrote down, oh my God, they did 2 episodes back to back about Mrs. Garrett's horniness.
Yeah, she's gotten fucked 2 times in a row. Because there's no way that we don't see this guy ever fucking leave.
No.
Anyway, Joe does what she does whenever somebody rich comes into the room. She gives them a stupid nickname and then tries to extra casualize things by going, "Come on, Alfie, let's chow down." She
Yeah.
always does this with fancy folk. And then we're out of that scene.
And where are we?
Well, it's later that night, and we're up in the girls' room. Alex has packed up her things. She sneaks out of the room with Tootie watching, and Tootie, looking judgy in her matching knee socks, hops out of bed and then lands directly on Natalie. I laughed at
So,
this part too.
so, um, the only reason I laughed at this point was because so Tootie, first of all, looks like a psychopath, because it's like, here's this girl who is like, I don't want to be here anymore. My parents don't love me. I don't want to give it a chance. This was a very disappointing evening. Like, fuck this noise. I'm going to go meet my boyfriend. And I got to be there by midnight. Clock's ticking. I got to be at the bus station. I got to go. I got to go through that weird secret door through the lounge that goes directly to the bus station that I don't know exists yet. You know, I got to get there. I got to get there. She leaves, right? Tootie sees this, and the camera's just like right on Tootie, who is like lying in bed with her eyes open, staring at the ceiling in her little blue nightie, looking crazy. As
Crazy.
soon as she's out the door, she leaps down, steps on Natalie, who screams, and she goes, "We got to go get her." And she's like, "What the hell are you talking about?" And she's like, "We got to go stop her from leaving." And she's like, "Who are you talking about?" She's like, "Alexandria." She's like, "Well, I can't do that because you're stepping on my face."
Yeah, well, she actually tells Natalie to go back to sleep, and Natalie's like, "I can't do that. You're stepping on my face."
Which I that was my only laugh.
I bet. I knew you'd like that part. So Tootie
Because
rushes.
to be perfectly frank, I enjoy listening to and watching little children abuse one another.
I know you do. That's why you've been so good about doing this podcast for 4 years. Tootie rushes out to get Alex. Natalie follows, which wakes up Blair, who makes the obligatory beauty sleep line so that Joe could make the obligatory "you need your beauty sleep" line. It's all extremely phoned in, but I did enjoy when Joe decides that they're all downstairs eating her chocolate mousse, which she has earmarks for breakfast. That sounds like such a good breakfast, and I've made chocolate mousse a lot during this pandemic.
I you know I'll say this about that. I do think that Joe is being a little weird and selfish about that because unless she put like a note on it, that's
She
creepy.
called dibs. She said she called dibs in
Oh,
front of everybody, and I think that's totally fair. If there's a
that is
dessert
fair.
that I'm like, I imagine I'm Joe. I've probably never
That's
had
fair.
chocolate mousse.
Then Mrs. Garrett went out of her way after being fucked to death by that dude, by Mr. Valente. She was like, I gotta go back. I gotta go downstairs. I have to get something to eat because I have no liquid in my body anymore. I'm dehydrated. I need to eat all of this chocolate because you fucked all the chocolate out of me. And and then Mrs. Garrett comes in with
You fucked all the chocolate.
And then Mrs. Garrett comes into the dark cafeteria with an Alka-Seltzer, a cup of Alka-Seltzer, and is just like, "What's all this then? Why are all you here?" "Oh, I ate that mousse, and that mousse is in my tom-tom."
Yeah, I think it's more that she had Alphonso semen in her tum tum, and that's what was causing the upset stomach.
Or this was a cup of Alfonso's semen, and she was just going to do a sort of like bukkake-esque situation. And just,
Oh yeah, she was. That makes sense.
yeah, that feels very on brand for Mrs. Garrett.
Yeah, he wants her to like put it in the soda stream and carbonate it. That's how he likes it.
Ooh, that sounds nice. A
Yeah,
little
right.
salty.
A little tingly.
Yeah.
Anyway, so now we're down in the dimly lit kitchen. Alex and Tootie are having their confrontation, while clueless Natalie stands there so that they can do that thing where they remind us what the plot of the episode is by explaining it to the one character that was left out of the plot. And then I wrote, if we don't get a scene with Mrs. Garrett waking up with Alfonso, I'm going to be so pissed off. Tootie explains that Alex runs away all the time. Natalie says, "Why do you do that?" Alex is like, "That's what you do when you're a chronic runaway." And I wrote, "This is such a waste of time."
Yeah.
She runs
Honest to
away. Why
God,
do you run away? It's what you do when you're a chronic runaway. What the fuck?
honest to God, I think that a, a boarding school show, a show that is set at a boarding school, should have had more plot points related to chronic runaways, because I do think that when you feel alienated from this new school that you're in, you might need to be coaxed into staying. I think that that's a perfectly good, plot. But to misuse it in such a way and then to just call this princess a chronic runaway, that's like, it's insulting to runaways and princesses. But it's like pick a lane. Like she
Who's
should be like,
Elaine?
it's like, basically it's like this character should have either not been a princess and been a runaway, been a problem child, or been a princess who's like, ew, it's gross here. Eastland is disgusting. I can't believe my parents sent me to this disgusting dump. Blech. And then the rest of the season is the girls being like, okay, get off your high horse, and all of the horses that you brought to Eastland, you could share a couple horses, and, come down a couple pegs and like hang out with us and eat chocolate mousse in your pajamas. You can't have it in this, like, it's just such a mishmash of like wasted opportunities.
Yeah, I think that the wasted opportunity is that we don't have enough moose mysteries on this show.
Fair enough. I agree. But so anyway,
Now Blair has come down, and for what reason, I do not know. I get that Joe's come in looking for the moose because it wasn't in the icebox, and that's fine. Joe can be on moose patrol, but what the fuck does Blair have to do with any of this that she's coming downstairs? It's just an excuse for Tootie to explain that Alex is a runaway for the billionth time, and we're not
yeah.
even done with it. And then Blair's thrilled because she hates Alex, and I like that there's no loss between them. Literally, no one else cares about Alex leaving, though. So I don't understand why Tootie is so invested, and also,
No, so invested.
yeah,
So she's like, you can't do this. And it's like, you don't know me. I can do this. I'm a princess, Tootie Ramsey. Back up.
Tootie says that having neglectful parents is no reason to run away, and Blair does that thing where she says if her life is so hard as a rich person, if she did that, she'd be queen of the road.
Yeah. And also, she's sort of like, um what's the term? It's like, um um you know, congratulations on making this about yourself, Blair.
Yeah.
Like she's like, she takes the situation and she's like, well, if all these bad things that supposedly happened to you happened to me, I would have been queen of the road. Also, I've got 3 dads who don't visit me. So suck my dick, little girl. And it's like, well, also, Blair, you know what? Only one of those is your real dad. If my mom had married many men, I wouldn't expect, and they all ended acrimoniously. I wouldn't expect any of those men to come and visit me at Eastland.
Well, Blair thinks that she is pretty special and that each one of these guys is about to become her permanent daddy, and then they go away. And it breaks her heart.
Yeah.
But not as heartbroken as Joe is when Mrs. Garrett comes in and turns on the light and admits that she ate the moose and it isn't sitting well. What a bitch. It's like, even though Joe called dibs, the worst part about it for me is that Mrs. Garrett didn't enjoy the moose. It's like when somebody steals my food, they better fucking enjoy it. If you were like, I ate your leftover Chinese food and it was weird, so I threw it out, I'd literally cry. So,
I love that this is the breaking point for you. You're like,
yeah.
this is where I lost my shit. If someone came down and ate my food that I called dibs on and then didn't actually enjoy it, that's it. That's
Yeah,
it.
if
I
they
would burst
ate it,
into
I'd be
tears
mad. But if
and
they
go on a
ate it and they
murder
were like,
spree.
I didn't like it, it didn't work out well for me, I'd be like, you fucking enjoy it or pretend to enjoy it because I'm so angry right now that it's not in my mouth. Anyway, I'm amazed that Joe has the composure that she has. So Mrs.
Yes.
Garrett asks why Alex is dressed, and I cannot believe we are about to get the explanation once again. Even Tootie says she's tired of saying the same fucking shit because she defers it to Alex, who says nothing Instead, Joe jumps in and explains how her and Alex are the same. They're both very skittish. And then Tootie gets a second win suddenly. She's not tired and she decides to jump back in and say, again, she fucking ran away from 4 schools. Cool, Tootie. I thought you were tired of saying this. You said it over and over again. I'm tired of hearing you say it. Anyway, Alex drops some nonsense. It doesn't matter whether she likes it at Eastland or not. She just has to go somewhere where she belongs. What?
Which apparently is Phoenix, Arizona.
Yeah, what? Mrs. Garrett points out that can't happen if she's a Rolling Stone. People have to know her before they can care about her, and before she can feel accepted and belong. Fortunately, we're not going to get much time to know Alex. Very few people do care for her, so including her parents and Facts of Life fans. So she will disappear, and no one will say a word about it. Natalie explains that they all came down in the middle of the night, even though they're tired and they're cold and hungry. Joe adds. One of them has a mousse in her stomach, which is so hilarious that it might actually make this princess stay.
All that excellent Jerry Mayer wordplay.
Yeah. This one has a mousse in her stomach. Oh, that's so funny. I think I'm going to abandon my giant-faced boyfriend that's followed me to 4 boarding schools, and I'm going to forget about the fact that my family has humiliated me once again. And I guess I'll just stay here because this woman has a mousse in her stomach, and I can't get funny shit like that in Phoenix.
Yeah. Anyway, then they all circle around her, and they're like, so you should stay. Give us, we have, and then Blair comes in and says this very weird, sort of slightly patronizing thing where she's like, we have fun here, you see? We got lots of fun.
Well, no, what happens is Alex goes, oh, you guys make me laugh. It's super weird. And then Blair goes, and that's only after 1 day. Then Mrs. Garrett goes, want to try for 2? And Alex says, 4 episodes tops, but then I'm fucking out of here. Yeah. Everyone agrees, and that's probably for the best, and we are mercifully done.
Yeah, again, it's just such a, it's the incompetence is just so staggering.
It is. This one was on all cylinders. I feel like, does Jerry Mayer have a drug problem? Is it well documented? What happened?
I don't know. But again, what's so interesting about this is that it's like, and again, when we do our little like epilogues after these episodes, and you're like, so next up, it's going to be a bad one or blah, 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 or whatever. Or we're turning the corner and everything will be great. Sometimes I am very mad and like pissed off about like what you just made me watch and, think about for such a long time.
I know you hate thinking.
I hate it. But, what's striking about, especially about like this episode, is that the only people who kind of like the only people who were involved in this, who showed up to do the work and to sell this episode, were the 4 girls and Mrs. Garrett. Everyone else involved, no. So those girls delivered these shitty lines, this shitty storyline, and they were like, I'll say it. I don't like it, but I'll sell it. So I'm not faulting the girls. It's just that the plot and the writing was so bad.
Yeah, no, you're not wrong. Next up, we have a disturbing episode. Blair gets a boyfriend, and I would say he's like not physically abusive, but he's maybe emotionally abusive.
Ooh.
She gets like deeply obsessed with him, and he's not
sounds fun.
that nice. Yes, it's called Magnificent Obsession, and I know you love a Blair episode, so at least we have a Blair episode this time.
Yeah.
Not a princess or a random old man or a series of, stupid people at a military academy. It's Blair.
To be perfectly frank, a Natalie episode.
Yeah, we've had a lot of those this season.
I don't want a Natalie episode until next year.
I believe we might have one more notable Natalie episode that's not the best for Natalie. Yeah, but we're for the most part we're past the Natalie stage.
Okay.
We have a couple of treats in store for the rest of the season though. I'm just looking at the
Great.
list. Anyway, all right. Well, until next time, we've kept you guys longer than usual for an episode that had less than usual content.
Nothing.
Yeah, nothing. So we'll let you guys go now. But thank you for joining us.
You make it sound as though we asked people to join us on like a very long Zoom call. People can stop and pause.
I thought when I watched this episode, I did my notes. I was like, this one's going to be a short one. This is going to be hour 15 tops because it's like dysfunctional and it doesn't work right as an episode. But there's not much to talk about. It's just bad. I was wrong. You and I, we can talk about anything.
We sure can. And also, if something is really bad, I can talk about it all night long.
Well, that's what I thought. I thought this one wasn't that bad. Like, this wasn't like, oh, man, this is deeply offensive. This wasn't, different drummer. But it was something. Anyway, all right. Sure. Until next time, thank you for joining us. And we will see you on the flip side.
Yeah.
I'm trying out these goodbyes. None of them work. You laugh at all of them. What do you want? Hasta la pasta. We're done.